Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, I'm welcoming you back to Coffee with Abdul-Lateef, and I wanted to discuss with all of you an issue that is very dear to me. It was a conversation, actually a spillover from a conversation that I had earlier about women in Islam. There are a lot of major misconceptions going on, running all over the place, about women and their role in Islam and women in their place in Islam. So much so that when we're out in the streets, sometimes we even hear women talking about women not having a major position in Islam and in this society, which is, I don't know where they're getting this from. And I even have run into women that say Islam is somewhat oppressive to men, or it's a man's religion. And really, I don't understand. I know where they're getting these concepts from. They're getting these concepts from non-Muslims, or even from some Muslims that they themselves may not have studied Islam. But the reality is far different than what it is that, or this picture that's being painted to all of you. And this is what I wanted to discuss with you today, to shed a little bit of light on it so we can stop saying these statements. And what's even worse is so that we can stop believing these statements. People, they come to us and they tell us, okay, women in Islam are oppressed. They don't really have any value. This is a man's religion. Everything is about the man. Everything is... Let me ask you a question. Who's telling you this? The people 9 times out of 10 that are telling you this are people who are looking at laws, whether they be local laws or international laws, that were developed within the last 100 years. And that's giving them a lot of credit. I'd say maybe 50 to 80 years maybe. And even that might be giving them too much credit. But we're looking at people who are going with principles that are newly developed. Women's rights, women's rights, women's this, women's that. Brothers and sisters, especially my sisters, you all need to understand something. These rights that women are just now getting in our society, not today, but let's say, like we said, we're going to give them a stretch of time within the last 100 years. These are rights that Allah gave the women over 1,400 years ago. You find this in Islam and more. The rights that are legislated for the women in Islam are even more than what they have now. And they put you on a loftier status than these rights that they're bringing now that actually turn around and bring you down. And you need to understand that. Don't fall for the rhetoric that's being thrown out there. Okay, women, they do this, they can't do this, and they have to walk behind men. These things aren't from our religion. These are from certain people's culture. We can't judge the religion by individuals, even if they're Muslims. We all know this. This is a common principle, but yet we allow ourselves to do it. Because we find some groups of people causing their women to do this and not allowing their women to do this and not wanting their women to be educated. These aren't principles that are from our religion. So don't fall for it because they say, okay, this is what Islam says, but we think women should have the right to study. This is not anything new. This is new to them. But to us, this was something that was revealed over 1,400 years ago. As a matter of fact, in today's society, the women, like they tell you, it's 50-50. Everybody's equal, everybody pull their same weight. In Islam, from the time that the woman is born until her death and after, she's taken care of. Not just, put in the house and told to sit down and be quiet and just listen to me, obey me. That's stuff that they show you on TV. You know nobody even goes by that type of situation in most societies. You might have some societies that may oppress women, but those are the societies. Those aren't the religions, or that isn't the religion, I should say. As a child, is not the man responsible for taking care of his children, clothing them, bathing them, making sure they have a house over their head, making sure that they have food in their mouths, making sure that they have everything that they need, even their education? Is this not the man's responsibility to make sure that his daughters are taken care of? And even more than that, protected. And their affairs handled for them so they don't have to be bothered with a lot of these situations that the men have to be bothered with on a regular basis. This is the norm. As a matter of fact, forget the norm. This is what men have been commanded to do for their daughters. And then we look at the situation of the women. Once they become wives, what happens? Their husbands aren't told, okay, well, it's 50-50. She pays half the bills, you pay half the bills, or this. No. The men are commanded to take care of them. The men are commanded to house them. Your husbands are commanded to house you, to feed you, to make sure that you're protected, your affairs are in order, your situation, everything. Your husband's commanded with these things. You're not commanded to go out here and get a job and make sure you provide for your husband. You're not even commanded to go out and make sure you provide for your children. But rather, you are from amongst those people that are provided for so that you don't have to go out here and deal with what we have to deal with on a regular basis as men. Why? Because your status is lofty. Yes, some brothers will say, okay, the men are a level over the women. This level is in responsibility, not necessarily that the men are better. This is something. These are tricks that the people are playing with us and our minds when it comes to our religion. Nowhere in the Quran does it say that men are better than women, ever. You're not going to find this in the Sunnah. But our job as men is to take care of you all. And when you become mothers and older, not able to take care of yourselves, or it may get hard on you to take care of yourselves, it's upon your children, namely your sons, to make sure that you're provided for. When the Prophet ﷺ was asked, who has the most right to my best companionship? He said, your mother. And this was repeated, and it was repeated. And then he said, and then your father. Look at the status that a woman has in Islam. Is this the same status that women had 50 years ago in your country that you're in now? Or even 80 years ago in the country that you're in now? Within the last 100 years, or 100 years from right now, 100 years ago, did they have these rights? No. I'm 99% sure if you look in the history books, you're going to find women didn't have these rights. Women were looked at as property. And in a lot of these places, within the last 50 to 80 years, women didn't even have the right to own things. Their husband owned, and they enjoyed with their husband. You all know that this isn't what Islam says. So much so that when a woman gets married in Islam, she gets a mahr. Her husband gives her something that's hers. And this is why you'll find a lot of these women nowadays are getting a little more, they're getting wiser, and they're investing this money. Because why? Her money is her money. His money is their money. And this is the way it works. You're going to tell me that this is the way of a religion that's oppressing women? And I don't want to get into a whole lot of this, that, and the other. Like I said, we're just having a cup of coffee. But I want you to understand that we need to stop repeating this rhetoric that people are bringing about our religion. And we need to understand that Islam came to raise the position of the women. And these newfound freedoms that they're telling you about, when you actually look at it, they're bringing your status down. You went from being over 1,400 years ago in the middle of the desert, being taken care of, being made sure it's an obligation on the men in your life to take care of you, make sure you eat, make sure you have clothes, make sure you're fed, make sure you have a place to live, to make sure that your business is handled. Now, you do for yourself. This is raising your level. Which one seems to be more oppressive to the status of the women? And I'm just saying, like I said, I don't want to make this a whole dose. But I just wanted to remind us, because this is something that we need to keep in mind. This is something we need to talk with one another about so that we don't get wrapped up in the rhetoric, and that our sisters and even our brothers, so none of us get wrapped up in this rhetoric and see it for what it is. It's rhetoric. All they're trying to do is confuse us and feed us lies about our religion so that we believe it, so that our iman decreases. When in all actuality, you should be able to look and you should be proud. Look at this. We had rights over 1,400 years ago that we don't have now. And I'm talking about as women. You women, this is what you should be thinking right now. That Allah raised our status 1,400 years ago, and the people in a lot of these societies, they're just starting to raise their status within the last 100. 1,400 or over 1,400 years in comparison to 100 and actually under that. So just remember that. Be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what He gave you, what He guided you to, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us increase, and make sure to start this discussion with other individuals. Share these comments or share these statements, share these stories and these ideas with your sisters so that they don't get wrapped up in what many of our brothers and sisters have gotten wrapped up in. And, as usual, I'll answer any of your comments and things. Just leave your comments at the bottom, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and I'll try and get to them as quickly as possible. And if you like this video, share it with anybody that you think could benefit from it. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك وأتوب إليك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.